How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Domination, and today we are here with a different video taking the place of Waiver Wire Wednesday. If you do want to know who you should pick up on waiver wires, I mean, Ronald Jones would be a good option. Wide receiver Deontay Johnson, you know, those are two good options. Ronald Jones, a running back for Tampa Bay. But anyway, let's get on with the scripted program right here. So this video is going to be talking about a team that is 1-3, and if they don't get their shit together in a road game against the Houston Texans, they're going to be 1-4, and we are talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Now, before the season started, I predicted the Atlanta Falcons to grab a wild card spot, and for the entire offseason, damn near, I had to hear Falcons fans tell me why the Saints are going to regress and the Falcons are going to take the division. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily disagreed with those people, but I knew the Saints were still going to be a very good team, and so far, even without Drew Brees, they found two wins without Drew Brees, finding ways to win games, whereas the Falcons are finding ways to lose games. Now, we're going to start off with the negatives about the Falcons, then we're going to transition to the positives, and then I have my final verdict, which is like 5 things that the Falcons should look to do to improve on winning football games. Now, for this video, I guess you could say, there is a lot of stats, there is a lot of statistics that go into this. Yes, I watch film. Believe it or not, imagine the same guy that preaches to people, watch film, actually watches film. So believe it or not, I have seen a lot of the Atlanta Falcons. I live in Georgia, I should know. I've seen a lot of the Falcons, and yes, have I seen every snap of the Atlanta Falcons football season? No, I haven't, but I have seen a lot, and quite frankly, to make a video like this, I've seen enough of the Atlanta Falcons. Going into the season, they were like one of the top 10 teams that I wanted to watch on a week-to-week basis, but they're towards the bottom of that list now, let's just say that. But at the start of the season, they were towards the top for me. Unless you're the Miami Dolphins or the Washington Redskins, there really isn't a whole lot of good things to say. Luckily for the Falcons, there are some bright spots, and we will touch on that very soon. But first, we got to get through the negatives. So starting off with the negatives, you know me, I'm all about the scoreboard, so we are going to be talking about scoring offense and scoring defense. The Atlanta Falcons are 26th ranked in scoring offense. To put that in perspective, the Arizona Cardinals with a rookie quarterback, Kyler Murray, average more points per game than the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, that's just pathetic. Let's just start there. You have a MVP caliber quarterback, a quarterback that's a former MVP. You have arguably the best receiver in football, and your offense is scoring less points per game than an offense that's basically being made up on the fly and has a rookie quarterback who everyone makes fun of for being like 5'9.5". I mean, there's no excuse to be that low ranked as an offense with arguably the best receiver and a top 10 quarterback that is a former MVP winner. No fucking excuses whatsoever. In scoring defense, they are 22nd ranked. To put that in perspective, their defense gives up a lot of points, and they're like in the category with like the Denver Broncos, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Oakland Raiders, which is pathetic to say the least. Pathetic for Denver as well, but their season is in all sorts of shambles. Third down defense, you know, it's often called the money down, and this is what a lot of people like to look at, especially for the offensive side of the ball. But for defense, they are 29th ranked on third down defense. I mean, they're down there with like Miami, which is very pathetic for a defense that everyone is hyped up going into the offseason. Oh, when they're fully healthy, you'll see how dangerous they are. Really? I mean, everyone's been able to pretty much do what they want, with the exception of, I don't know, nobody, I guess. Let's see, and then now we move into a different category. So it's not just scoring, offense and defense, or third down defense. We're going to be talking about penalties. Because believe it or not, you have to be a disciplined enough football team to make things work, and the Falcons are first in total penalties, and they're third ranked in penalty yards behind Cleveland and Minnesota. So the Falcons really just shoot themselves in the foot. Not only do they allow teams to score on them, and they can't really keep up, and they allow people to convert on third downs, but they shoot themselves in the foot with penalties. I mean, unnecessary penalties too, like week 1 when Keanu Neal hit a Dalvin Cook who was going out of bounds. I mean, that was just stupid. I mean, why would you even do that? If you're pissed off that your team's not doing well, I don't know, do better, spark the defense in other ways than hitting a running back that's clearly given himself up going out of bounds. I don't know, Keanu Neal, just a thought. I mean, bless up. I hope you get better from your injury, because literally like 2 weeks after you got hurt, but hopefully things get better for you. And third in penalty yards, I mean, the only reason they're not first is because Cleveland literally has like a spot foul on a pass interference, so it's really like 30 yards more that Cleveland has over Atlanta. Now, rushing offense, yeah, this is where things get juicy. Devontae Freeman's coming back. I like Devontae Freeman. I think at full strength he is a top 10 running back. It's not even debatable. But this season, they're not top 10 anything in terms of rushing. As a matter of fact, they have the 27th ranked rushing offense. That is inexcusable for a team that wants to run some play action and wants to take a couple of shots here and there. They need to run the football. And they only have 1 rushing touchdown on the entire season. That is just pathetic. And they literally got that rushing touchdown last week against Tennessee on a goal line play. So it's not like they're ripping 10, 20-yard runs. They got it on the goal line, which you would expect people to be able to punch it in on the goal line. Alright, now let's get strictly to Matt Ryan for a second. So for Matt Ryan, he has 6 interceptions on the season. Now, all of them aren't his fault. However, when you look at the game logs, he has 2 games with 2 or more interceptions, weeks 1 and week 2. Now, I'm going to go ahead and break down these interceptions a little bit, because some people are just going to look at the stat sheet and be like, oh, Matt Ryan threw 6 interceptions. This guy's a fucking bum. This is the guy who won MVP a couple of years ago? Really? The guy that's throwing 6 interceptions in 3 games? Well, let's go ahead and break down all those interceptions, because part of this little job and me making videos like this, you have to watch film. I don't think I need to be told that, because I tell everybody else to watch film, so yeah, take that with a grain of salt. So, out of the 6 interceptions Matt Ryan has thrown, I believe 3 of them, or 4 of them, are solely on Matt Ryan. Both interceptions to, I think his name is Anthony Harris from Minnesota. I could be wrong, but number 41 for Minnesota, I think his name is Anthony Harris. There was a ball that Matt Ryan threw in double coverage to Julio Jones, picked off by Anthony Harris. Now, I get it. Julio has a big catch radius. You like him in those situations. Not if the ball is not in the right position. I don't like that at all. And then there was a play where Matt Ryan's trying to throw it out of the back of the end zone. Anthony Harris just goes up and snags it. I'm not going to completely put that on Matt Ryan, but if you want to throw it out of the end zone, throw it out of the back corner of the end zone when there's nobody, without it necessarily being intentional grounding. Because Austin Hooper was within the area. All you had to do was just throw it 90 miles an hour out of the back of the end zone instead of floating it up in the air for 2 seconds for a defensive back to make a play on it. And then we go to the Philadelphia game. Matt Ryan had 1 interception that I believe was tipped in the air, and Sidney Jones just made a good play on it. I can't really blame quarterbacks for tipped interceptions. If it hits the receiver's hands, you got to catch it, okay? I mean, that's just the bottom line. Then there was another one where Matt Ryan was feeling duress, and he kind of airmails it in the air for Julio, and Ronald Darby just gets in better position. Now, that's going to be a 50-50 call in my opinion. You shouldn't be airmailing it for defensive backs, but also, at the same time, I get what he was trying to do. However, it was a bad judgment play. Bang, bang, I understand. And then the third interception where he blindly throws it into the red zone to Nathan Gary. It was damn near triple coverage on Austin Hooper. I get it. You've been feeding him the entire game, and he has been reaping the benefits this year, offensively, Austin Hooper that being. And he's been having a good game up to this point. You're just trying to get him a touchdown. Well, you threw it into damn near triple coverage. Basically, there was a quarterback spy almost trying to keep track of Matt Ryan moving around in the pocket, and you had 2 guys covering Austin Hooper. The spy drops back at the moment Matt Ryan goes to throw the football, and he picks him off in the end zone. So just a dumb read from Matt Ryan in the first place. Why are you throwing it in the double coverage again? You just got picked off the previous game by throwing it in the double coverage. You think it's just going to work the next week? Dude, stop. And then he throws a pick against the Indianapolis Colts. That one's not completely on Matt Ryan, but oh well. So we broke down Matt Ryan's interceptions right there. And by the way, the Atlanta Falcons this season, all 4 of their games have been indoors. They played at Minnesota. They play inside of a dome. They've had 2 home games this season, week 2 against Philadelphia, week 4 against Tennessee, and then they went to Indianapolis, who happens to play in a dome. And this week, they're playing the Houston Texans, who happen to play in a dome. So really, there's no excuses for the Falcons. Maybe they're just this bad, I don't know. But you've started out the season without having to worry about weather. You don't have to sweat your balls off in Tampa Bay or in Miami or in Jacksonville. You know, like you're playing indoors and you're 1-3. Let's just start there. By the way, you're 0-2 on the road indoors. Like, come on. I know the crowd is a real thing, especially in Minnesota. They get pumped, but the Colts really didn't seem that much into it, to tell you the truth. Because, you know, at this time, Atlanta was coming off a win against Philadelphia, and the Colts were coming off a loss, so they didn't really seem that into it. Another thing, we're going to go back to running the football for a second. Actually, for these next 3 negative points, we are going to go back to running the football. 71 rushing attempts in 4 games. If you average that out, that is just under 18 rushing attempts per game, 17.75. But we all know you're not going to have 3/4 of a rushing attempt, so about 18 rushing attempts per game. Now, another interesting thing is under 30% of offensive play calls have been a rushing attempt. So not only, have you guys not really been running the ball that much per game, but out of all your play calls, you barely ain't running the football. I mean, you have teams that are known for passing the football who run the ball more than that. I mean, come on, under 30% running the football, that is pathetic. And now let's get strictly to Devonta Freeman, who a lot of people expected to bounce back after having a whole year of rest, and it still could happen. We're just going based on the first quarter of the season. This shit can change by, like, I don't know, mid-November, so, like, don't panic. But Devonta Freeman, 3.3 yards per carry, that is pathetic. I don't care. You know, if you're not getting 4 yards a carry, you're not really that productive on the ground. But 3.3 used to be the average. I think now it's like 3.6, 3.7. That's where you want to be, so it's really a game of inches. But for a guy that is coming back, I mean, we expect a little bit more juice than 3.3 yards per carry. Now we're going to talk about Julio Jones for a second. Now, Julio has been balling, but my biggest concern is he is 3rd on his own team in receptions. Now, I get it. This has been a huge year for Austin Hooper, who truthfully only has like 5 or 6 more catches than Julio on the season. And Mohamed Sanu has 1 more reception than Julio. But I just thought it was interesting. That's why I wanted to point it out. But, hey, I'm all for it. I love the fact that Austin Hooper is getting involved more in the offense. But he is 1st on his own team in targets. So typically when you're 1st in targets, you're getting more targets than the other receivers. You would expect to be 1st in receptions. I mean, that's kind of how it works. But 37 targets for Julio and only 23 catches. Whereas like Mohamed Sanu, I think, has like 31 targets and 24 catches. So he's getting less targets but yet more receptions than the star wide receiver. Which basically you can look at that at 1 of 2 ways. You know, you can say that Mohamed Sanu is taking full advantage of every target, damn near, or Matt Ryan is relying a little bit too much on his star receiver, which I don't believe that narrative at all, because he's 3rd on his own team in receptions, and you have Austin Hooper who's been balling, and you have Mohamed Sanu who's doing all the dirty work underneath. So I'm going to go with narrative number 1. You know, Mohamed Sanu is just taking advantage of not being the focal point of a defense. So that's good. But the turnover margin, this is a big thing as well. Final negative right here. The turnover margin is -4. Which basically means your defense isn't getting takeaways and your offense is turning the ball over. -4. If you're not at least as close to even as possible or in the plus category, then you're not a good football team. I mean, that's just how it is. But it is what it is. We're done with the negatives. Now let's focus on the positives, man, because believe it or not, there is positive things to say about the Falcons. Yes, I watched tape. I'm going to go into detail about the tape after I get through the positives. Jeez, I don't know why people act like I don't watch tape. I do this. I practically do this for a living now. So for the positives, the Atlanta Falcons are averaging 10.7 yards per reception as a passing offense, which basically means every time Matt Ryan throws the football, it's a first down. Now, that's not actually true. You have to take into effect like big plays that the Falcons may have in the passing game. You also have to take into effect checkdowns that don't even get past the line of scrimmage. But as a passing offense, statistically, in a bubble, they're averaging 10.7 yards a catch. Now, we all know that's not true. And they're actually averaging 4 yards per carry as a rushing offense. Now, we know in some games, I just said that Freeman is averaging 3.3 yards a carry, but as a rushing offense in general, you know, they're averaging 4 yards a carry. And to go even deeper into that number, Ito Smith is averaging 5.7 yards per carry on 33 carries, you know, in the season, which is good, which means in a lighter workload, he's able to get more yardage. Ito Smith has the only rushing touchdown on the season as well, so that's another thing you have to take into account. So good stuff from Ito Smith in a limited role. I'd like to see more of him, but I get it. Freeman's back. You want to get him going. It almost makes you wonder, should they have just paid Tevin Coleman that little $5 million a year? Maybe they pay him for one season. But I understand. They liked what they saw in Ito Smith, which is why he's still there, and Tevin Coleman is no longer. Now we look at yards, okay? I'm not a huge yards guy. I believe in points, but if you do want a positive, the Falcons are 11th in total yards on offense and only 9th, which is actually pretty good, in total yards on defense. So they're not allowing people to just get yards and get yards and get yards, but they are giving up points, which could, you know, which means a couple of things. Number one, shorter field for the Falcons to cover, or I don't know. I guess turnovers that lead to opponents having a shorter field. I'm not really too sure. But I have watched the games, trust me. I watched as many snaps as I can. I haven't watched every single snap of Falcons football. I only do that for the Packers, okay? Because they're my team. That's who I roll with. For Matt Ryan, though, there are some positives. 8 touchdowns on the season. I believe that's tied for third with like a good bit of quarterbacks. And he's second in passing yards. So, I mean, hey, that's a positive. He's throwing it all over the lot. You'd like to see more touchdowns, but hey, he's third in the league in touchdowns. I mean, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, you know, they're towards the top of the league with 10. So, yeah, I mean, you're not doing too bad there, Matt Ryan. You're doing good. Julio Jones has 4 receiving touchdowns. That is very good, you know, for Julio Jones, who last year up until like week 8 didn't have a touchdown, and here he is early on in the year getting touchdowns. So I like to see that from Julio Jones. And Grady Jarrett, easily the best player on defense, in my opinion, after watching as much of the Falcons defense as possible. Grady Jarrett's the only consistent player. He has 20 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. Now, 20 total tackles will rank him 4th in total tackles on his team, which that'll put him behind Devondre Campbell, Deion Jones, and Ricardo Allen. And he only has 3 less total tackles than Ricardo Allen, so he's doing something right there. The 2 sacks and 5 tackles for loss lead the Falcons. He leads the entire team. I can't remember who has 1.5 sacks. I think it may have been Vic Beasley. I don't remember when I was looking at it, but Grady Jarrett leads the team in tackles for loss and sacks, which, unless you're Aaron Donald on the Rams, it's not really a good thing. You don't want your defensive tackle, who faces double teams all the time, to lead the team in sacks and tackles for loss. Tackles for loss I get, because there are going to be situations where Grady Jarrett's in a one-on-one and he completely obliterates the offensive lineman in front of him. Deion Jones hasn't looked too bad on tape either. I think he's slowly getting back into form. He's actually been playing a little bit better in the run, needs to completely wrap up, but I get it. He's built like a safety, trying to play in the run game. I get it. But Deion Jones hasn't looked too bad this season. Probably is their 2nd or 3rd best player on tape. but Grady Jarrett's easily the best. I mean, it's just by a wide margin. I mean, he's the only guy constantly pushing the pocket. He's the only guy really, like, blowing up run plays and blowing up gaps and making guys like Dalvin Cook and Marlon Mack go into different directions. Like, sometimes the play will be designed for them to run up the middle. Grady Jarrett just completely blows that shit up, and they got to bounce it to the outside. So that's something I definitely noticed on tape. Let's see, the corners, I mean, it's hit or miss on a weekly basis with them. Like, Desmond Trufant had 2 interceptions. One of them were kind of gift wrapped it to him. The other one, he just made a great play on the wide receiver going up against J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Let's see, Isaiah Oliver has the most passes defended, so he's definitely getting targeted because the other corner on his team is Desmond Trufant. But Marcus Mariota had no problem throwing at their necks last week. I mean, let's just say that. Brissett had a streak where he completed 16 consecutive passes. Kirk Cousins only threw the ball 10 times, so that really doesn't matter. And Carson Wentz did throw 2 interceptions like we talked about. Had an up-and-down game, but really started to get his shit together in the fourth quarter. So there's a nutshell breakdown of the Falcons' defense, at least their secondary. Now here's my final verdict, ladies and gentlemen. 5 points that we have to mention right here. A couple of them about the offensive line as well, because I know you guys have been waiting for me to talk about the offensive line. So, my final verdict in a nutshell, don't bail on the Falcons just yet. They need to run the football more and make more adjustments on defense. Their schedule is a workable one for the next few weeks. They do face Houston in Houston, a team that is struggling. And if Grady Jarrett can push that pocket, I mean, Watson could throw a couple of dumb passes that go the Falcons' way. Let's see, they face the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. Another dome game. 6 straight for the Falcons. I swear to God, they're the only team that catches that kind of, break. And Kyler Murray and company, I mean, if they can at least keep them off the scoreboard, they'll be fine in that department, because Arizona's scoring offense is slightly above the Falcons, but yet they do have a shit ton of yards. They just can't score. So they're kind of like the Atlanta Falcons offensively, if you really think about it, but not really. That's just statistically. Let's see, the Falcons need to be better in run defense, take better angles, play with more effort. I don't know how many times I've seen Dalvin Cook or Marlon Mack rip a run and I just see dudes jogging. I mean, come on. And especially they're like right there in the area. Like, fucking turn on the burners and bring his ass to the ground. Like, why are you jogging, dude? Like, looking like the 2018 Packers out there. They were just jogging, not giving a crap, like... You're right there. Bring his ass down, will you? I mean, come on. And then Keanu Neal, prior to the injury, didn't really have the greatest of angles when trying to stop the run, which is why people were able to turn it upfield. If you take better angles, you have a higher percentage of bringing the guy down. So, yeah, take better angles, safeties, corners who are trapped in an island with, good running backs. Let's see. You need to design plays on offense to get the ball out quicker, cut down the deep passing attempts, or the extremely intermediate passing attempts to like 25 plus, because the offensive line has not been great. I mean, Jake Matthews has had a up and down season. He did have that great block against Philadelphia, but in all honesty, he's had an up and down season watching the tape. Chris Lindstrom was looking like the second best offensive lineman on the team as a rookie, and then he got hurt. He's on IR. Alex Mack has been holding it down. Not really too many complaints from him. The guard play has been inconsistent on the left side, and now on the right side as Chris Lindstrom steps away. James Carpenter, and I forget the other guard's name. I think it's like Jerron Brown. I don't know, but their guard play has been inconsistent ever since Lindstrom has left. At least with Lindstrom, he was holding his own against those bigger guys, and he kind of fits the zone blocking scheme really well in Atlanta, so... There really wasn't an issue there, and his pass protection was pretty good against those bigger guys. Caleb McGarry, my only real complaint about him is he struggles against speed rushers. Granted, he did have his hands full with Danielle Hunter, so I can give him a pass, and it was his first game. But that is an issue you got to clean up. When he's going up against those power guys, he does pretty good. Like against... Philadelphia, like he held his own against those power rushers, against guys like Derek Barnett. But when he had to go up against a guy like Danielle Hunter, a speed rusher, he was just getting beat off the line very quickly. We saw him backpedaling a little bit. That's something he has to clean up. You have to do better against speed rushers. You have to get out there. I mean, Caleb McGarry's a strong dude. He's going to outmuscle a ton of guys, but you have to get better against those speed rushers. And that's something that I wrote down here. Help out Caleb McGarry in pass protection when going up against speed rushers. You know, if you want to, you can chip a backup tight end over there. Maybe have Freeman double team him when that pass rusher gets a push. And then for Dan Quinn, get more creative on defenses. Send crazy blitzes. You know, mix up the coverage. Don't be too predictable. You know, just because you came from Seattle and they ran a bunch of cover 3 doesn't mean you have to run a bunch of cover 3. You can mix it up. You can go man-to-man. You know, you can go cover 2 in the red zone. You can, send some heat, send some blitzes, show the team different looks and whatnot. But I wouldn't completely give up on the Falcons. You know, they have a workable schedule over the next 4 weeks. They could go 2-2, 3-1, or it could be a complete disaster and they go 1-3 or 0-4. But I wouldn't completely write off the Falcons. I mean, Houston last year, the Houston Texans were 0-3 last season. They finished the year going 11-5. So I wouldn't completely write off this Falcons team. I think they're capable of beating the Houston Texans. I think they're capable of beating the Arizona Cardinals. Then they go back home. I think they can beat Seattle. Maybe. I mean, it just depends. We'll see how that game goes. It's Russell Wilson we're talking about here. But hopefully you guys enjoyed, and if you're a Falcons fan and you heard this video, you heard me talk shit on you guys with all the negatives and praise you guys a little bit for the positives and then talked about the final verdict. Let me know how you feel about your team in the comment section. Are you on team fire Dan Quinn, tank for Tua, fuck Matt Ryan, defense sucks, blah, 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 or are you a little bit more optimistic, like, hey, we just got to go 1-0 every week. Let's try to give 100% all the time. I still believe. Hashtag rise up. Which side do you fall on? The more optimistic side or our season just ended? Which side are you on if you're a Falcons fan? Let me know down below in the comment section. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you're new. Turn on the notification bell because, why not? I mean, I like my videos. Just saying, that's why I make them. But hopefully you guys enjoy, man. Peace out. Enjoy the rest of your day.